In this video, you'll discover the top intermittent fasting mistakes that you're making, ones that can even be causing you to gain weight. Hey Wellness Warrior, it's Dr. Zyrowski, and I think intermittent fasting is very important for anyone who's trying to live a healthy lifestyle. It makes being healthy so much easier, but also it is something that has tremendous amount of benefits. But the problem is a lot of people don't do it right, and then they quit because they're frustrated with it. So I want to talk about a few of the top intermittent fasting mistakes that you're likely coming across. So let's go ahead and first start with caffeine, okay? Now, intermittent fasting, when you're doing this, you can drink black coffee. As we know, we can have coffee and it has caffeine in it, which is going to have a lot of benefits. It can improve our mood. It can help us be more alert at any point in time when we're in that fasted state. And also the coffee can even blunt our hunger. So therefore, it's very helpful in intermittent fasting. But there's a few problems with the caffeine. If you're using it as a crutch for poor sleep at night in order to give you energy, or some other health problem that you're having that's really causing a lot of fatigue for you, it can actually raise cortisol levels, stress levels, and cause you to even gain weight over time. Now, the other problem with caffeine when you're fasting is when you drink this on an empty stomach, it actually could do the opposite. Caffeine typically will help you improve your mood, but in this particular case, what will happen with caffeine is it can cause anxiety because you're drinking that caffeine on an empty stomach and make you feel jittery, give you anxiety, and not help with your mood at all, and do quite the opposite. So therefore, with caffeine, we have to be careful with it, okay? So it's something you can use, but it should be used lightly, and also just make sure that it's never used as a crutch because it can push those stress hormones in the wrong direction. Now, protein is the next on our list, okay? A lot of times when people are intermittent fasting, they are not getting enough protein in, okay? Some of the quick symptoms that you might see of not getting enough protein, maybe your hair falling out, maybe it's fatigue, also just loss of muscle mass. So we want to make sure that we're not losing our muscle tone. And then also, if you're lacking protein in your diet, you're likely filling it with something else, right? You're filling that void, and that's one of the huge problems. It is typically filled with carbohydrates and sugar. And of course, that leads to the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with intermittent fasting, right? We're gonna try to lose some weight with it, thin up, lose some belly fat. Well, if we're over consuming carbohydrates and sugar, then we're gonna have a real problem there. And then of course, with the lack of protein in the diet, it causes more cravings. So therefore, when you're in your fasted window, you have a lot more cravings that you don't wanna deal with. And then it can even lead to you over consuming calories when you're in your eating window, okay? So we have to make sure that we're getting adequate amount of protein and also a good amount of fats too. That's important. But make sure that you're looking at your carbohydrate intake and your sugar intake. First of all, get rid of the sugar, carbohydrate, keep it low, and then really focus on protein and good quality fats. Next on our list is your calorie intake. Now, one of the things that happens with intermittent fasting is mentally, it kind of messes with us a little bit, right? So if you're somebody who's consuming 3 meals a day, you kind of figure like, okay, this is how much food I need in each meal. Then all of a sudden you cut it down to like either 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. It can kind of mess with your interpretation as to how much food you should be eating at each meal. So therefore, what happens is a lot of people tend to overconsume in their intermittent fasting window. Okay, so if we're over consuming, then we want to make sure we get that under control, because it doesn't matter how long you intermittent fast. If you're over consuming way too many calories, then you're going to have a harder time losing weight. Now, the other problem also could be that you're way under consuming and you're just tanking your metabolism, and that's not healthy either. So I think it's always good to make sure that you're kind of get a concept of where your calories need to be at. You could go online, get a calorie tracker app on your phone, and you can identify how many calories you need. I roughly consume somewhere around 2,500 calories personally myself, and that's between exercise and being physically active throughout the day. That's what I need. Now, that's for me as an individual. So this is why you go and you basically figure out how many calories you need as an individual for your lifestyle, the size you are, male or female. Are you very active throughout the day, or maybe are you at a desk all day? So you put in that information and you basically get the amount of calories that you need. And I'll look for some resources in order to help you figure out your calories and put a link in the description below, okay? So calories is a big one. Next on our list is going to be time, okay? First of all, if we don't give intermittent fasting an adequate amount of time, it is not going to work, okay? It is not a, get skinny quick scheme. It's not a 30-day crash diet. It's a lifestyle. And so we have to be willing to give it the time, and it does work. Intermittent fasting does work if you're doing it correctly, and it works in a phenomenal manner. However, you have to be willing to give it time. Any type of natural healing, and this is kind of just a quick tidbit in order to help you understand, natural healing takes time. There is a time component to the healing process. And so we want to make sure that we're giving intermittent fasting time in order to work within our bodies, okay? Not just try to do it for a week and say, that didn't work for me, right? So we want to give it time in that sense, but we also want to make sure that we're using intermittent fasting with the correct fasting times that fit our schedule, fit your schedule, and fit your body. And so let's go through a few of them here. 16 and 8 is one of the most standard intermittent fasting times out there that people use. It's the one that I fall into the category of using the most, that combined with OMAD. But I'll also tell you a few ways that I do it personally. And I'm always switching up my intermittent fasting because really for me, it's a lifestyle. And when you're, fasting is a lifestyle, it should be changing according to how your life changes. Most people's lives is not stagnant, same thing one day after another. It changes. So therefore, your fasting schedule can adapt with your life that's ever changing. So 16 and 8 is very common. That means that we're fasting for 16 hours, eating our meals within an 8-hour period. Okay, that's a really great method. Now, if you're new to this, maybe it's, you're just fasting for 12 hours at first, and then you bump it to 14, and then you bump it to 16, whatever you got to do to get yourself up to the 16-hour mark. And then of course you can even go further beyond that. There's the warrior diet. I'm a big fan of that as well. That's basically fasting for 20 hours, eating your food within a 4-hour window. It's very similar to one meal a day. One meal a day really falls into the category of consuming your food over a 1 to 2 hour period. So we're going to find these two very similar, but I mean, whether it's the warrior diet or OMAD, both of them are great ways to fast. And then there's the eat, stop, eat method. And this is basically doing a 24-hour fast 1 to 2 times a week. Now, I am a big fan of a 24-hour fast once a week, okay? This is something I find to be very beneficial in my own life. So here's how I might fast, okay? Kind of give you an example of what works for me. 16 and 8 is my regular schedule. I'll jump into a 1 meal a day here and there, or maybe the warrior diet type of schedule. It just depends on what I have going on throughout the day. I'm never stuck on one thinking I have to be perfect with that particular fasting schedule, because sometimes I might not even make 16 and 8. There might be something that kind of screwed that up for me. So therefore, I'll bounce around between these, but one of the things I also like to do is once a week jump into a 24-hour fast. As of lately, it's been like every Wednesday I go into my 24-hour fast because that's what works for me. And between all of these, I mix them up and I find what makes me happy at that time, because this is a sustainable lifestyle approach, right? You have to feel good about it. You have to be happy with it. You have to be content. And then typically one day a week I don't fast at all. And so this is the big mistakes that most people are making, and these are some of the different methods that you can use, and you figure out a time that works for you. For most people, you hear of a time system from a friend or a coworker or something of that nature, and you try to just kind of jump onto whatever they're doing. But the reality is there's a lot of options and they all work great, so figure out which one actually works best for you. If you like this video, I think you'll really like this one over here next.